Welcome to Dream Big with Big Dreamers, conversations for career growth, inspiration, and insight. It's time to dream big. Here, so we've got a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to call you Scott Mesh, and I'm going to call you Scott Jones. Will that make it a little easier?
Yeah, great.
So, Scott Jones, what do you think? Like, what goes on in your head if I said to you, Mother Teresa crossed with Jeff Bezos? Like, what comes into your mind?
I think Jeff Bezos would actually make Mother Teresa more likable, because she had a real kind of reputation for being a pretty difficult person who was a wonderful person in sense of like really serving the poor in Calcutta, but she could be incredibly difficult. And it's interesting too, because she really struggled with religious faith. She had deep skepticism. She was this really complicated person.
You've just totally blown my mind. I thought Mother Teresa was this like lovely woman who just helped people, poor people in Calcutta. I had no idea about these things.
I mean, she was that, but she was also a really complicated person. I mean, like, I think Pope Francis is somebody you'd want to hang out with, right, and socialize with. I don't think I'd want to socialize with Mother Teresa. Although I had a friend who worked with her for a summer, and he asked to stay, if he could stay with her. And she said, leave, go find your own Calcutta. And he works in Kensington with...
So he found his own Calcutta.
Yeah, exactly. He found his own Calcutta. I mean, in Kensington, by the way, if you don't know Philadelphia, Kensington is lovely this time of year. I mean, if you can rent a Cape Cod there, it's gorgeous. No, but it's interesting because Jeff Bezos is the guy that like is the face of kind of global capitalism and seems probably like the colder of the two, but actually he seems like a warmer person. Like he does all these wonderful things. Like there's this, one of the things
but
that I love
is it
about
him or is it his ex-wife? Because I'm hearing that his ex-wife is the one that's like giving away her fortune.
Oh, that's true. And maybe I just think of things like that they do at Amazon. Like they have these meetings where there's no screens open. And if you want to propose an idea, you write a narrative of like 2 or 3 pages, and people sit and read the narrative and then talk, and people don't have screens up. And there's just so much about executive Amazon culture. Now, again, you could talk about, do they get paid enough? All this stuff, do the workers in the warehouses and all that kind of stuff. And that's above my pay grade. I don't know a ton about that. But I do think like if you had given me the option of who I wanted to hang out with, I think I would have rather hung out with Bezos than Mother Teresa.
That is crazy.
But Pope Benedict would be the one I would take over both of them, because he seems really fun, and it seems like you could have a glass of wine with him and do some Latin dancing, and he would be a fun guy.
I would agree. Well, I will tell you that our guest today is Scott Mesh, and he has been described as Mother Teresa crossed with Jeff Bezos. How crazy is that? I'm going to give you his bio. Are you ready? I'm going to read it right now.
I am ready.
All right, here we go. Doctor. Ooh, he's not just Scott. He's Dr. Scott. There we go. Wait, you're also Dr. Scott Jones, right? Are you a doctor too?
I did PhD work at Princeton Theological Seminary. That's not as sophisticated though.
See, I'm thinking, how can I differentiate you guys? All right. Anyway, Dr. Scott Mesh is a bilingual psychologist and the co-founder of Los Ninos Services. This award-winning agency has served over 30,000 young children over the past 20 years. Los Ninos is recognized as one of the premier agencies in New York City for their excellence in serving toddlers with autism and developmental disabilities. He is the author of A Practical Guide to Early Childhood Assessment, and he is the co-founder of the American Psychology Association of Graduate Students with over 25,000 members, and he is also an international speaker. Dr. Mesh is a longtime member of the Entrepreneurs Organization and a thought leader on creating a best company culture of learning and wow customer service. So Scott Mesh, Dr. Scott, have you ever sat down with Mother Teresa? What was she like?
Yeah. Well, I can't say that. Wish I would have. Quite a story. My God. What kind of a life would somebody live of complete and utter service to others? So, that's kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's what gets my wife out of bed, why we kind of put things together. She's also a psychologist. And we said, we just want to help others. do it very well, and help all kinds of people. People speak Spanish, people who are well-to-do, just serve everyone. And that's what we've done for about 20 years, serving young children with special needs.
Yeah. Well, you studied psychology at the University of Michigan and at St. John's University. So growing up, did you want to be a psychologist, or did you want to be an entrepreneur, or did you want to help people? Like, what got you moving in that direction?
In fourth grade, I wanted to become a millionaire and an inventor. So what happened? When I was 10, my mom said, you're really good with babies. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? I should work with babies or something? I was like, are you crazy? I'm a boy. So what happened? Over the years, I was a day camp counselor. I was a Boy Scout leader. I loved helping people, but I didn't want to go in psychology. It's so mushy. I wanted something that was more tangible. You start things, you end things. So what happens over the years? I couldn't escape it. I'm a friggin' psychologist. I think like a psychologist. I want to help people like a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. At the same time, be careful what you wish for. Be careful about your interests, because those things tend to stay with you your whole life. To tell you the truth, I'm really not big on money. That has never driven me. However, the idea of creating a great organization that was doing great things, that has always stayed with me. So I'm doing that. Working with children, I always love children.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm working with children. So the interests that people tend to stay with you over the years, that happened with me. So now I'm combining really the major things that I love. Entrepreneurship, envisioning, architecting, if you will, a great organization, doing great things for others.
That's an amazing thing. So did that bug bite, with the thought of this whole, being an entrepreneur? Because you have Los Ninos, you do work with other organizations in terms of their cultural fit and helping them make sure they're that, the excellence. How does that all come together for you?
Well, my day job is running the company, the services company, and my nighttime job is working on training. So we have another company, Young Child Expo and Conference. So we started this 17 years ago. I was like a, former, wannabe academic, taught at Queens College, Yeshiva University, a couple places in New York. But when the company took off, it really left little time. So I kind of stayed with this, but I used my teaching desires through this conference, which grew. Now we had a couple of conferences, West Coast, and I always wanted to put our material that people loved online.
Okay.
What happened with COVID? I got my wish. We had to put things online. Otherwise, we weren't going to have anything going on.
Is
So
that
we
another be
converted.
careful what you wish for?
Yeah, exactly. So in the spring, in 7 weeks, we converted the physical conference of 1,500 people, comes from around the world, into a virtual conference. And now we're in the process of continuing to curate and house all this great material in an online learning library.
Do you think
So
that's going to
those
be more
are
successful because people can do this at home rather than have to?
absolutely. How many people can fly from Manila? Several times we got the top 10 pediatricians from the Philippines to come to New York. Now, I believe they liked the conference, although I think maybe they wanted to visit New York also. So, we get groups of people from around the world, but it's difficult. Opening it up online, you've got tens or hundreds of thousands of people that were not able to come physically. So, yeah, it opens up a tremendous opportunity.
I'm curious, is there a tension between the helper in you and the entrepreneur in you, right? Because one, I mean, the entrepreneurial business person tends to be thinking big picture, right? And about big goals, big, the BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals. And generally helpers tend to be a lot more particular with regard to human need right in front of them. How do you, are there tensions there, or are these things that have, like, are they just more integrated in you?
Well, for me, I just don't see a conflict. Basically, you picked up on the one thing that I love doing more than anything else, helping people. So I can help people individually. And so why did I, bother to create an agency that I had like no knowledge of, no MBA? So what I said was, well, if other people do it, I could do it. And that has turned out to be true. So basically, my desire was to help a lot more people. As a psychologist, you could help 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, but you're not going to help 1,000 people or tens of thousands. So through the Los Ninos services, we're able to help literally tens of thousands of people. So I don't see it as a tension. I see it as a driver. And basically the entrepreneurship is just really the method of delivering the help. By creating a strong company, then you're able to serve a lot more people.
Was the entrepreneurs organization, were they partly responsible or helpful in helping you do that type of a scale?
Well, absolutely. After our third year, we barely qualified for membership. You have to be like 1 million or more in revenue. And, shortly thereafter, we were losing $10,000 to $20,000 a month. Our revenue was going up. So we're like, yeah, hire more people, more administrators. So, however, we weren't really minding the numbers, and the revenues were growing more slowly. The costs were rising more rapidly. So through the Entrepreneurs Organization, we met this guy who turned out to be the founder of EO, Vern Harnish, amazing guy, tremendous teacher. And that was the beginning of our executive education and our street smart, MBA, if you will. So by taking workshops and other learnings, being connected to tremendous people, we were able to survive and then thrive.
That's a, I always find, like, with some people, they're successful, and it's always like, how did they get there? Like, did they, how do you get there? Because you do seem to get to a point, and whether it's an inflection point or I hit the ceiling of my own knowledge, but
Absolutely.
What helps you break through? Like,
So, yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, first of all, I told Adita, my wife, when we were starting the company in our studio apartment, I said, Adita, we are going to make a lot of mistakes. As long as we learn from those mistakes, don't repeat them too much, and we don't make a fatal mistake, then you know what? We'll probably survive. So that is true. I mean, there's so many things to learn, Donna. You could have an MBA from Wharton, but, it's not going to teach you every situation that you're going to encounter. So you're going to have to confront them. If you have smart people around you that are advising you well, and if you're calm, thoughtful, get useful information, other opinions, diversity of opinions around you, and then make good decisions, then you'll be able to break through those inflection points, continue to grow. I mean, if you think about it now, COVID, I mean, we were slammed like everybody in our industry. Most people were down about 50% in revenues. The problem is you still got all the costs.
yeah.
So we had to dramatically downside the cost. We were able to get out of one of our 4 leases. We're in the process of getting out a second one. So, you gotta think fast, and there's always decisions, always challenges, and you cannot always learn them in school or through other people. You just have to take things one at a time, put one foot in front of the other, and be very thoughtful and considered in order to successfully continue growing through all kinds of ups and downs.
You're married to a psychologist. You're a psychologist. You're married to a psychologist. Are your dinners just like massive therapy sessions? I mean, are you like, um, you know, someone says pass the bread, and are you thinking what you really meant there was I remind you of your father or something like that?
Scott, what do you mean by that?
Oh my gosh, I'm hearing my father rebuking me right now. Ah!
So, well, I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems normal. So maybe it does look like that. We try not to go back to childhood, but yeah, usually the joke is with the kids in school, like, people feel sorry for them. It's bad enough to have one psychologist parent, but to have two. Um, so, but they say, it's an advantage because it helps them develop emotional intelligence. So, I'm very fortunate. We have very, very sweet kids, and I think they're very, very special, of course. And people have commented that they're very thoughtful children. So hopefully something good came out of it.
Has that helped you as an entrepreneur? Because I think the biggest thing that my guess is a lot of businesses fail not because somebody didn't have the Wharton degree or this or that, but because they didn't know themselves. Like, there's a book, Failure of Nerve, which is a great book on leadership. And
Sure.
the author says, the most important thing a leader can know is their own emotional self. I mean, do you think if more entrepreneurs tended to their own emotional well-being and their own sense of what's going on with their feelings, they would do better?
Absolutely. So emotional intelligence has been correlated with success in leaders. If somebody brushes their teeth with dynamite, they're not going to be a very effective leader. So absolutely, what's one of the most, critical skills of a leader? Communication. And, if you're riled up, if you're all pissed off and you're shooting your mouth off, that's not effective communication. You're not going to retain the best and the brightest to work for you. So I'm glad you asked that question. And that is one of the positives of having that training in communication and communication very, very broad. How about listening? To be an effective listener, active listener, being interested in others, yes. And then combined with, hey, we got a job to get done. So I heard from you. Thank you so much. And now I need to think about what you presented, and I have to make an executive decision. So yeah, listening skills, communication skills, self-awareness, like, another book, Leadership and Self-Deception, very, very important. Because otherwise, what do executive coaches do? They tell the executives the things that they're not aware of. You're turning people off. You're pissing people off. You're threatening people. You're scary. So it's, the answer is absolutely yes. That has been a positive of being a psychologist. I would like to tell you one of the challenges of being a psychologist. So we are trained to think a lot about others. So when you're an executive in an organization, it's great to be a good listener. However, you got to get stuff done. So you have to remain focused, keep your eyes on the prize. What is it that we have to do here today, this week, this month? And then nicely have communication, listen to others, and come to conclusion, make good decisions that will move the organization ahead.
Do you feel that for an executive is that path to get that coach, or is it to actually go and get therapy?
Both are good. I mean, if somebody has therapy, that's fine. I mean, I had about 10 years myself, a couple times a week, psychoanalysis during graduate school. So that was helpful. You can go to an executive coach. I mean, it's similar types of things. Maybe it would be way deeper with a therapist, but either way, like you said, Scott, increasing self-awareness, big. Developing your communication skills, big. So both of them are absolutely helpful. I've had a number of coaches myself, and I found that a good listener as a coach is helpful. However, I want a coach that's going to tell me, talk turkey, what's what. I want to call a spade a spade. If something's not right, I need to know about it, because I got 300 people that are counting on me to make good decisions. So, I don't want to be, pacified or, just played with. I want somebody to tell me straight. And they have, and those have been effective. I haven't liked hearing the feedback necessarily. It doesn't feel good to know that I did something that wasn't the greatest. However, it's really important in order to be successful.
I just recently interviewed someone who, for another podcast I do, and her name is Melissa Bernstein. I mean, she wouldn't mind me telling her story at all because she's a pretty public person. She and her husband founded Melissa and Doug's Toys. It's like a $500 million company.
Right.
And she just wrote a book called Lifelines, where she basically didn't come to grips with her own struggles with existential depression and mental illness till she was 50. And she kind of gritted through it. She had 6 kids. She had, by all means, a successful marriage, an amazing business. And now she's throwing herself into creating a community for people to recognize their own struggles, emotional struggles, and struggles with mental illness. I mean, I'm wondering how much, do you think we need to destigmatize this stuff? Because I feel like if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to be confident and strong and thriving, thinking that maybe I've got emotional issues I've got to work out seems like a chink in the armor or something. I mean, how do we get people in spaces where they can actually go deal with their own issues, which are probably more widespread than we think, right? Like lots of people are probably struggling with stuff and not breaking down. I mean, this woman was, until age 50, she was incredibly successful and realized she was really eating away at her own soul by not dealing with some of her own existential stuff. I mean, how do you get people to a place where they can normalize their issues?
I mean, in a word, I would say acceptance. People are who they are, including yourself. So, what you're talking about is absolutely traditional. And, it's interesting that you talked about a female executive who was the one that was open to looking at herself, because, of course, women overall are much more open to self-reflection, looking at issues, and also they engage in a lot more help-seeking behavior than men, and particularly traditional men. So what you're talking about is the traditional, macho man, the sturdy oak, the one that doesn't want to admit any issues. And while there's some value to being strong, if you don't identify a weakness, sometimes that weakness could kill you. Yeah, I agree 100%. When there's issues, let's solve them, let's address them, whatever they are.
And we're talking at this like executive level or the entrepreneurial level, but I almost wonder if this is something that flows to just the regular professional. They don't even have to be a leader to need to have that self, reflection and that help from a person to sort of figure out what are those issues that are maybe plaguing them and stopping them from their growth or their trajectory with their career.
So Donna, 100% agree. So this is something, for everybody, to be self-aware, know what you're good at, know what you're not. You're not great at something. How long you want to do that? How successful are you going to be at that? So to be aware and then to accept yourself overall as a person. It doesn't mean you have to love your weaknesses. It doesn't mean you have to be proud of your weaknesses. However, to say, okay, well, this is who I am. And then when you say that, the next step is, hey, I'm great at X, Y, Z, but I'm not doing it that much. I ought to move in the direction of my strengths. like Marcus Buckingham, right? Let's focus on the strengths. Let's move in that direction and be aware of the negatives, because the negatives can really get you.
So you're a Jim Collins fan, and
Absolutely.
I'm our listeners can't see this, but I can see like all the Jim Collins books laid out on your shelf. I'm a Jim Collins fan as well. And I think it was he that did a study with his graduate students. They did a study on CEOs, and they found that bad CEOs tended to talk mostly about their successes. Middling CEOs talked about equally about their successes and their failures. Great CEOs talked mostly about their failures. And what they learned from this was that the great CEOs were people that were thinking about what they could learn from their own shortcomings. But it strikes me that you said something about acceptance. It strikes me to get in that space where you can mostly focus at a cocktail party or with your colleagues on what you're learning from your shortcomings. You have to have, I guess, a tremendous sense of self, right? And it strikes me that the bad CEOs that are just probably bragging about their successes probably haven't gotten to that level of acceptance you're talking about. How much is acceptance, is that tied to the capacity to thrive and succeed in entrepreneurial endeavors?
I like the way you put it, because there is accepting yourself as a person with all your blemishes and pimples. Okay, so you got the positives and the negatives. It doesn't mean you have to love all of the weaknesses. So the way you put that, I think, was a great way to think about addressing the issues, because when you have a self-acceptance of yourself as a person and you're strong, then you're able to accept, like, hey, okay, so I'm okay. I'm an okay person. However, I got this issue or understrength or weakness. So let me talk about it.
And you can actually say, I blew it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Self-acceptance. Whereas if you don't have that, right, you're never going to be able to admit, I blew it and let's learn from it. You're going to always be trying to project, I would guess, something like, if you don't know you're okay, I guess you're going to spend all your time, right, trying to convince people you're okay.
Donna, should I just kill that so it doesn't happen again?
Oh, the phone?
The phone.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry.
2807. Write that down.
Exactly. That's right. The first thing I did.
Since we cut Scott, is there anywhere, we're almost at the end. We're like at 30 minutes.
Yep.
So I only want to go for maybe another 10 more minutes. Is there anything, would you like us to direct the conversation in a specific manner, or are you happy with what we've done so far?
I really like it, and you're touching on things that are important to me that I think are really important to other people. Hopefully I'm saying something useful.
I think so. Would you like to get into some advice that you've been given, maybe kind of segue into some of those things that have been going in your head about that book that you'd like to write? And would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's fine. You could just ask me, what kind of, thoughts I have for other people, that can help them be successful, or, advice or thoughts, whatever, that's fine.
Sure.
That's and fine. The thing we had left hanging, right, was I think I just asked you about.
And if you want to redo that or whatever, either way.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll just redo it. So 2807, we kind of next off. Remind me, 2807. Yeah, so it sounds like the issue with the power of acceptance is, if I accept myself, I'm going to be able to look at the times I blew it.
Yes.
But if I don't accept myself, I'm going to be at every cocktail party, at every my kid's little league game, at every church or synagogue function, trying to convince people that I'm okay, right? That's going to take up so much emotional space. Whereas if I have this sense of acceptance you're talking about, I'm going to be able to take a look at the times I feel like I haven't measured up, because my whole ego isn't on the line, right? And And is that what enables a good entrepreneur to take risks? Because with that sense of acceptance, there's a freedom, or there's a freedom in relation, it seems like, to fear of failure.
Yeah, Scott, I really like the way you put that together. So that is the way I see it as well. Somebody feels strong, comfortable who they are, accepting of who they are, is like able to talk about something that they didn't do good because it doesn't deflate their whole ego, their whole self. You know, if they've got some strong foundation, they're okay with themselves, and then how are they going to get better? Then they're good. Take Olympic athletes. Tell me one Olympic athlete that doesn't have a coach. Are you kidding? So what is the Olympic athlete interested in? They want to know exactly the opportunity, okay? All the opportunities. A swimmer whose hand was 1/4 of an inch turned a little bit to the side, and if they move it 1/4 inch more, they could get 1,000th of a second better and win the gold. So all those little things add up, and it doesn't deflate their ego. They look at them as opportunities. So the way we talk about things also affects our acceptance of those things. So if we talk about problems, it's an immediate negative. If we talk about opportunities, which, by the way, it's the same thing, so then people are more, enthusiastic. They're, like, oh yeah, opportunities. Yeah. We're going to talk about opportunities. I am ready to go. But that's really what they are. So that makes a big difference. Yeah. Accept yourself. Look for the opportunities to be better, to learn and grow. It's all about learning and growing.
What other advice would you give to someone who's sort of, up and coming? Is there, a bit of advice that you wish you had when you started down this path?
Donna, it starts with why. People need to have a direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got 3 teenagers right now. They're kind of searching for their direction. One of them thought they had a direction. Now she's not so sure. So what I find is most people, I think, never figure out, what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
They go through life, they do stuff. They pick a job, they pick a career. It's all right. Maybe they might like some things, not like others. But to find your calling, to find something that you absolutely love to do and would do for free, mm-hmm. as we know, you'll never work another day in your life if you find your calling like that. So I'm fortunate, to have found that in what I do. Mm-hmm. So my first piece of advice would be find your calling, try to find what you're passionate about, find things that you would do for nothing because you love them. Yeah. And so that's your direction. Go in the direction of the things that you love because that will help you not only enjoy your life, but also be more successful.
It also reminds me of a quote that you had told me a little while ago. You said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I suppose in finding your why, that's what you're finding, what you care about. And if you do care about it, people suddenly start to pay more attention. They care because you care.
Absolutely. So, find what you care about. And then the thing that's like related to that quote is who you care about. So if you care about others, then they will care about what you know. So caring about people is important.
There's a great Nietzsche quote that I was just reminded of as you were talking. Nietzsche says that he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. And
Absolutely.
that sounds like what you're getting at, right? Once you get the why question, the how stuff will fall in place, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because life has not been easy in the last 20 years. When people look from outside, They think we're rich, successful, everything. I wish it were true. Social services is not the area to go in to make a lot of money. What I tell people is, you want to make a lot of money, open a pizza shop, but not social services. It's great for the heart, not necessarily for the wallet. But we've had some really challenging times. 2007, 8, the recession, COVID now, just a lot of challenges, 9/11. So we lived through a lot of things. And how did we get through it? Absolutely keeping our eyes on the prize, having something that was worthwhile to us to, a goal of helping a lot of people, and knowing that if we didn't make it as a company, we wouldn't be helping any kids and we wouldn't be employing any people. So having something to live for and move on. Yeah, there was the famous story from Jim Collins about Admiral Stockdale in Vietnam. And Jim Collins asked him, how did you make it through? And relating to your Nietzsche quote, he said, well, there were people that said, we're going to be out by Christmas. Christmas would come and go. And then he said, well, we're going to be out by Easter. And Easter would come and go. And they died of a broken heart. So realistic expectations, an ultimate faith in that you will survive, dealing with the dual reality of the present, brutal truth, whatever that is to you. And we've had very, very difficult times, couldn't make payroll, really, really, really tough times. So have faith in the end, and that by putting one foot in front of the other, that you will get there to keep going.
And you have. You're still here, and you're helping people, and you're
still here
doing so much good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Don and Scott, for having me. It was really a pleasure chatting with you both.
The pleasure was all ours.